The International Criminal Court has been discussing notifications from several African countries wishing to withdraw from the court. The Assembly of State Parties has been meeting at The Hague over the ICC's relations with Africa. So far, 3 African countries are withdrawing. It is expected more will follow. Tulisha Balala has the story.
South Africa, Burundi and Gambia are all exiting the ICC. It's expected other countries like Kenya will soon follow, although several are still on the fence. The ICC is facing criticism from other parts of the world as well. Earlier in the week, Russia announced it's pulling out, although it's more of a symbolic gesture. For the chief prosecutor of the ICC, it's a matter of dialogue.
I always say it is for the Assembly of States Parties that should entertain this dialogue amongst themselves, because those states that have withdrawn so far are states parties to the Rome Statute. So that dialogue has to go on amongst themselves, the states parties, to discuss what are the concerns.
When asked why Bensouda thinks these countries are withdrawing, she has a different take on the matter.
It may be the fact that the court is operational, it is functional, it is working well, and it is showing that it can be effective. Not everybody can be comfortable with that also, we see, because this is holding people to account for accountability, for crimes that are very, very serious. So there is bound to be pushback.
South Africa's Justice Minister has been at the Assembly of State Parties and has been scathing.
Everybody talks about the need for dialogue, but nobody gives the details of what that dialogue should entail. And we're saying unless this body is specific about what dialogue exactly is being called for and whether there is a willingness to open the dialogue specifically on this issue, then the basis of our decision remains.
Most African and European countries still support the court, though. The ICC is the first ever permanent international war crimes tribunal. Tulisha Balala, CCTV.
Well, let's get you some perspective on that story. I'm joined live from The Hague by Alan Ngari. He's a senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies. Alan, welcome to Africa Live. Now, several African countries want to pull out of the International Criminal Court. Others want reforms. What's your take on the divide within the continent?
Thank you, Beatrice. I think let's first start by contextualizing that there are only 3 out of 34 African states that have indicated their intention to withdraw. And so that means that the majority of African states are still with the ICC. Here in The Hague, during the Assembly of States Parties meeting, we have heard some of these states express their concerns with the ICC. The concerns really relate around the imbalance of the geopolitical situation around international justice. And it's a situation that has been created not by the ICC, but by the United Nations Security Council, which has powers to refer and defer cases at the ICC. This is chief among the contention by African states. And there isn't really a divide, but they're saying that we would like these concerns addressed, and this is the right forum to address these concerns.
Well, the ICC does keep talking about dialogue, but South Africa, one of the countries you've mentioned that wants to withdraw, says it is not being clear on the exact nature of that dialogue. What's your take on that?
I think it's disingenuous for any state to say that dialogue has not happened or that the avenues for dialogue are not being created. The very fact that we're here in The Hague to listen to states parties debate these issues is an opportunity for dialogue. Our proposition is that the Rome Statute itself that has created this court has provided several avenues for addressing disputes between states. Where a state feels aggrieved by the functioning, the interpretation of the Rome Statute, this is the forum to raise those issues. On Friday last week, there was a special bureau meeting where states stated their concerns with the International Criminal Court, and we've seen even South Africa itself giving some indication that it is willing to have dialogue, to exchange in dialogue. That dialogue means that they must be very true to their concerns. Immunities of heads of state is one key issue. The imbalance of the geopolitical landscape is another issue. These concerns must be discussed between states themselves here in The Hague at this time that they are meeting.
Well, do you think, though, that African countries have a point when they claim that the ICC is biased? Because all those cases that were brought before the court by African governments are by African governments, after all. Is this a case of the continent forgetting how events played out? Or does this have a larger significance, especially when it comes to global politics?
So there are 10 situations before the ICC at present, 8 of which have been brought by African states themselves. So they have wanted the International Criminal Court to intervene in their own countries. The only situations that have been an external referral is Darfur in Sudan and in Libya. So African states themselves, in a majority of the cases before the court, have requested the court to come in. It's therefore not true that the ICC is targeting Africa or that there is bias on the part of the court against Africa. What, however, is valid is that the imbalance that has been created by the referrals in Darfur and in Libya have not been replicated, for example, in the situation in Syria, where the United Nations Security Council was crippled because of the imbalance in that system and has not referred Syria to the ICC. And these are some of the concerns that African states have had in saying that, look, if this is a court that is truly an international criminal court, it must have cases from all over the world. At present, Georgia is a situation before the court. The prosecutor of the court has indicated that Afghanistan and Iraq and Philippines are situations that merit the attention of her office, and it's a matter of time before indeed we see these situations before the court. So it's not correct to say that Africa is targeted. In fact, if anything, it is perpetrators of international crimes, wherever they may be, whether in Africa or another continent, that are being targeted. At present, Africa has a majority of the cases because our systems in the continent are unable or unwilling to address international crimes.
Right, Alan Ngare joining us there from The Hague on the ICC and Africa situation. Thank you for your insights.